All right, welcome back. Here we are, Chapter 8 Mortality and Immortality. So, our awareness of our mortality and the quest for immortality seem to be strictly human phenomena. Life, death, and the afterlife have always been and will continue to be intertwined with art making. This is Cain Quell Cocopod Coffin from Ghana, Africa, 1970s. From ancient times to the present, humans make tombs and commemorative art to serve different purposes: to express cultural ideas and values about death and the afterlife, to closely tie religion to ritual burials, to promote political and social intentions, and to visually establish power, to guarantee honor, fame, and or glory. Um, so today, art and rituals of death serve as social, political, and personal needs. This is a coffin crafted for a coca tree farmer, which memorialized the life's work of the deceased. In workshop, Cain Quay's workshop produces personalized coffins for Ghana locals and for people all around the world. His coffins are designed to reflect the life work, to reflect the values, and to honor the deceased. That's so cool. This is Newgrange in Meath, Ireland. Neolithic, 3200 BCE. Early tombs, mounds, and mountains. The earliest tombs shaped like hills or mountains. Egyptians built pyramids, which are geometric mountains. Others built mounds like grass-covered hills with hidden burial chambers or elite members of society. Mound graves were often tied to natural phenomena, like the movement of the sun. That might be a question on your quiz. So, in ancient burials and funerary practices in religion, agriculture, and astronomy were often interrelated. One of the oldest tombs is in Ireland, the late Stone Age tomb of Newgrange. Newgrange is oriented so that the 2 weeks near the winter solstice, morning sunlight radiates down through the entire passage, illuminating one patterned stone to the burial chamber. The Great Pyramids are old, large, influential style, oriented to the sun, the tombs of the pharaohs, and are part of a necropolis. They represent artificial mountains that are on a flat artificial plane. This is in Giza, 2525. The Great Pyramids have small interior chambers robbed shortly after they were sealed. Bummer. To thwart grave-robbing pharaohs, they stopped building enormous tombs. Later rulers were buried in chambers cut into the sides of mountains with hidden entrances. This is the 4th dynasty. This is the Great Pyramids of Giza. Granite and limestone, 450 feet high. Wow. Gorgeous. Furnished tombs. So many cultures believe that the afterlife was similar to this life and that the dead continue to live in the tomb and needed furnishings like those used when they were alive. Egyptian tombs and mortuary temples are 1,000 years after the Great Pyramids. The Egyptians provided examples of furnished tombs, which were the meeting places between earthly life and eternity. This is the innermost coffin of Tutankhamun, found in Thebes. According to Egyptian belief, a human possessed a soul with both a ba and a ka. The ba is part of the soul. It resides in the heart or abdomen. It is depicted as a human-headed bird. When humans take their last breath, the ba flies from the body. After 70 days of mummification, the ba returns, hungry and thirsty. A well-prepared tomb is filled with provisions to satisfy the needs of the ba in the afterlife. The ka is the mental space of the human soul. The ka is symbolized by outstretched arms. It has an attendant figure that represents the double of the personality, dwells in a lifelike statue of the deceased. Both the statue and the sarcophagus would have to be a strong likeness of the dead as person, so the ba and ka could easily recognize their destinations. To preserve the bodies and make them recognizable, they were mummified with natron, a mineral mixture found in the desert. The innermost coffin was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. It is beaten gold, weighing nearly 3/4 of a ton. Oh my God. Inlaid with semi-precious stones. That is so heavy. How did they move that? The wings of Horus encircle the coffin, and Tutankhamun holds the insignia of his rank. He wears a distinctive eye makeup, a false beard, a symbol of power, striped headcloth, and a cobra head to frighten enemies. Wall paintings and carvings recreated the pleasures and labors of earthly existence. The fowling scene shown an Egyptian noble hunting along the Nile River. Patterns are important, and they are visual metaphors for the cycles of the Nile, the unchanging culture, and the vast desert. Depth is rarely shown in ancient Egypt paintings. Everything is distributed vertically and horizontally. Very 2D, right? This is a wall painting from the tomb of Nabumun, Thebes, 1400 to 1350 BCE. And of course, it's in the British Museum. In this wall painting, humans dominate the scene. The noble is shown in the manner reserved for exalted persons. Heads, shoulders, legs, and feet are in profile. Eyes and shoulders frontal. The nobleman is larger than his wife and daughter, indicating their lower status. When high-ranking Egyptians began to hide tombs in hillsides, the funerary temples were enlarged and emphasized. The mortuary temple of Hatshepsut shows this development. The temple was a monument to the greatness of Egypt's woman pharaoh. The temple housed 200 statues of her, painted reliefs showing her divine birth, coronation, military victories, and other exploits. After Hatshepsut's death, portraits were defaced and records of her rule were obscured. She was supposed to be the ultimate awesome queen pharaoh, and they tried to erase her. Here's a sarcophagus with the reclining couple in Italy from 520 BCE, painted terracotta from a cemetery near Cerveteri. Cool. Etruscan tombs. The Etruscans were ancient people who buried their dead in earthen mounds, furnished for the afterlife, similar to the Egyptians. In contrast to the tombs of the Egyptians, Etruscan tombs were not grand monuments to powerful rulers, but emphasized sociability and the pleasure of living. A couple enjoys a banquet on their coffin in this freestanding sculpture. The wife and husband are shown at the same scale, reclining together at a banquet, sharing the same couch. This reflects the fact that Etruscan women had more rights than women in most other cultures. Etruscans built their dead under row after row of earthen mounds arranged along streets in a necropolis. The tombs often had several modest-sized rooms, laid out much like houses. This was the banqueteers and musicians, Etruria, 480 BCE. Etruscan tomb art emphasizes pleasure, the pleasures of feasting, music, and dancing. Tomb walls were covered with paintings like banqueters and musicians from the Tomb of the Leopards. Banqueters recline on couches while servants bring them food and drink. The funeral complex of Xing Huangdi. One of the most extensive tombs ever constructed, Ying Chang became the ruler of the Qin state in 259 BCE. He subdued the rival neighboring states to unify China and found the Qin dynasty. These are the soldiers from Pit 1, 221 to 2000 BCE. Painted ceramic. Average figure height is 5'9". Wow, look at this. Unbelievable. In 1974, peasants digging a well uncovered an army of 6,000 life-size clay soldiers guarding the Afterlife Palace complex. The torsos are hollow, the legs are solid. The bodies are standardized, frontal, stiff, and anatomically simplified. But every face is different and sculpted with great skill and sensitivity. Wow. Royal tombs of the Moche civilization. Moche civilization extended for more than 400 miles along the Pacific Ocean in what was modern Peru. The Moche society was stratified from rich to poor, reflected in their burials from simple, shallow pits to elaborate burial chambers on pyramids. This figure shows the elaborate gear worn by a warrior priest. The royal tomb of Sipin burial site contained warrior priest ceremonial gear, jewelry, breastplates, weapons, and ornamental feathers. This figure is dressed in objects found in the tomb. Cloth covered with gilded platelets, shell beads over his wrists and shoulders, helmet nose, plate, and crescent-shaped bells that jangled with every step. The peanut necklace, which a peanut necklace was 10 gold and 10 silver beads. The peanut was a ceremonial food or a food of honor. I love it. The Viking ship from Oseberg ship burial in Norway in the 9th century at the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo. The Vikings were maritime raiders from Scandinavia, and their tombs reflect how important sea travels was to their civilization. The Viking ship was probably the private vessel of a wealthy family, intended for use near the coast and inland waterways. The graceful curves of the low, wide ship culminate in tall spiral posts at stem and stern. The front is carved like a coiled snake. Other wooden objects were found in the burial ship, which included beds, carts, and sledges, and carvings of imaginary birds and beasts. This ship burial was the tomb of a high-ranking woman. So during the first millennium BCE, mound tombs were replaced by funerary art and architecture. Tombs became commemorative structures instead of furnished homes for the afterlife. Ancient Greeks developed the earliest commemorative funerary architecture. This is in Athens. Marble relief. The most common Greek monuments were small columns supporting vases, urns, and small statues, life-size freestanding figures of young men or women, and relief carvings on stone slabs. This stele, S-T-E-L-E, not E-E-L, S-T-E-L-E, depicts the deceased woman with a servant bringing her jewelry. Funerary relief of a circus official. Roman family tombs and mausoleums were built outside of the city in several styles: altar tombs, towers, modified Greek temples, diminutive Egyptian pyramids, and combinations of these. The funerary relief of a circus official for a working class person's tomb, cramped in style, full of details and numerous characters. It has the largest figure. The largest figure is the official. The wife at the far left holding hands is a symbol of marriage. The wife is smaller and of lesser status, and she stands on a pedestal, sign she died before him. Romans often produced non-idealized likenesses. The faces of the official and his wife are frank and unflattering. The foreheads are wrinkled, the protruding ears, the droopy nose and mouth. Christian burials. Early Christians buried their dead rather than cremating them. They believed the body would resurrect and rejoin the soul at the end of time. Around Rome, vast underground networks called catacombs were dug out of tufa, like the Etruscan burial chambers. The catacombs became sanctified places. Martyrs were buried there, fugitives hid from the Romans, worship services were conducted, small rooms were carved out of a catacomb passageways used as mortuary chapels, and they were often plastered and painted. Here's a mausoleum, 425. In 313, Christianity was accepted in Rome and became the official religion. Large churches were constructed and tombs located inside. The mausoleum of Gaia Placidia was originally attached to a church. Mosaics give us a good idea of the style, imagery, and decoration of the time. Christianity became the official religion of Rome in 313 under the Emperor Constantine. Is that a question? Maybe. The tomb of St. Peter was the focal point of a new church marked by a canopy in bronze called a baldacchino. This tall canopy is mounted over the tomb of St. Peter. The baldacchino is taller than an 8-story building, recalls the cloth canopies that covers tombs of early martyrs, and has curving columns that recall those Constantine placed in Old St. Peter's. Vine-covered, twisting columns seem to support the canopy as if weightless. Christian church burials were periodically banned as tombs rapidly overtook church interiors. The rich and powerful continued to be buried in the churches as they depended on donations that accompanied the burial. The poor and working classes were buried outside in cemeteries and churchyards. The Chapel of Henry VII on the back of London's Westminster Abbey houses the tomb of Henry VII, his wife, and honor his uncle. Built in English Perpendicular, the style is a variation of the Gothic. There's a question about Gothic. This might be it. Westminster Abbey was used for royal burials until the 18th century. It also houses tombs of statesmen, military leaders, and artists and poets. The Taj Mahal. Islamic mausoleums. So the wealthy and powerful in Islamic societies were sometimes buried in mausoleums adjoining mosques. The most famous Islamic mausoleum is the Taj Mahal, or the final resting place of Mumtaz Mahal. Built by Shah Jahan, her husband and ruler of the Mughal Empire in India. The Taj Mahal sits at the north end of the walled, gated garden symbolizing paradise. The canals divide the garden, and the canals symbolize the 4 rivers of paradise. The Taj Mahal symbolizes the throne of Allah, and the Taj Mahal is a compact, symmetrical, centrally planned structure on a raised platform and surrounded by 4 minarets. What are those little things called? Minarets. That could be a question. I'm feeling like that's a question on your quiz. What are these little things right here? Minarets. Minarets. Okay. Reliquaries. That's another. I think that is also a question. Yes. On your study guide, at least. A reliquary. In some religions, bones, tissues, and possessions of deceased holy persons are kept and venerated. The practice was popular in medieval Europe. Pilgrims would visit medieval churches to ask for special favors. The fragments of clothing or body parts were kept in reliquaries, which were small precious shrines. There's an arm. Someone's arm. They bronzed it. African reliquaries often held the remains of ancestors. Ancestors are honored as they affect the welfare of the living. The reliquary guardian figure from Gabon was placed on a bag or basket that contained the skulls and long bones of ancestors. The guardian protected relics from evil, helped obtain food, health, or fertility from the ancestors. So this is a reliquary guardian figure, Kota Obamba regions of Gabon, Africa, 19th, 20th century, 24 inches high. Modern commemorative art from the past 2 centuries varies and includes monuments addressing personal loss, memorials for groups, and monuments for political leaders. Monuments express loss, they preserve memory, and they transform the experience of death. This is in France. The Père Lachaise Cemetery. From the middle of the 18th century to 19th century, cemeteries in Europe reached a crisis point. Neglected churchyards were overcrowded, unhealthy, and sources of pollution. Civil authorities removed control of burials from churches and established large suburban cemeteries that buried the deceased regardless of religion. The Père Lachaise Cemetery was opened on the outskirts of Paris. The design was influenced by Romanticism, and the cemetery was laid out with paths and massive trees. Families constructed elaborate structures using Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Gothic, Modern, and Art Nouveau styles. Urns, columns, and obelisks were often used. Their exotic qualities is a further manifestation of Romanticism of the time. Many famous figures are buried here, making the cemetery a tourist attraction. I think, isn't this where Jim Morrison is buried? I believe so. Compare Ophelia. Okay, this is Ophelia, 1852, by Millet. Compare Ophelia with the monuments in Père Lachaise. Ophelia is a contemporary with many of the monuments in Père Lachaise Cemetery. Ophelia is a character in Shakespeare's Hamlet, and she becomes incapacitated from grief and drowns. Ophelia exhibits a pose, a flower-strewn dress that suggests a casket, lack of grisly details of madness, lack of the grim condition of the body by drowning, and a tragic and poetic feeling. At Père Lachaise Cemetery, many monuments echo the sensibilities expressed in this painting. Beautiful. A social tradition, the Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is celebrated in Mexico and parts of the United States. Its Christian and Aztec beliefs are mixed together in Mexican celebrations of the dead. In public, marketplaces are sites for parades and celebrations. In private homes, altars honor the deceased with incense, pictures of the dead, and their favorite foods. Families may spend the night at the graveyard, decorating the grave sites and burning many candles. This is Diego Rivera, Dia de los Muertos, Mexico, 1923. It's a fresco. And it's at the Ministry of Education in Mexico City. God, I want to go see that. As you know, Diego Rivera was married to Frida Kahlo. They were counterparts. The atmosphere of the Day of the Dead invites political satire and commentary. Hanging in the background are satirical skulls and skeletons of a priest, a general, a capitalist, and a laborer. On New Ireland and nearby islands, villagers hold memorial festivals to commemorate deceased clan members. Sculptures called Malangan are carved for the occasion. This is a helmet mask in Oceania, Papua New Guinea. Honoring the dead requires effort and wealth, but it stimulates local economy, creates stronger alliances among villages and clans, and includes initiation rites for young men. This is the Mausoleum of Mao Zedong in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China. The Mausoleum of Mao Zedong houses the body of the leader of the Communist Party, or Communist Revolution, and asserts the authority of the Communist government. The alignment of the mausoleum with the Forbidden City and Imperial Palace is meant to signify the Communist leaders' claim as rightful successors to the emperors. What is this? Oh, okay, now we're talking about HIV. This was a big deal. The Names Project organized the AIDS Memorial Quilt, a commemorative work with a personal and political impact, composed of individual 3x6 feet panels decorated by friends or family. The quilts communicate the enormity of the epidemic and its toll in the United States. This huge collaborative work commemorates the loss of loved ones to a deadly disease. This is 1996. In the 90s, AIDS was like so scary because we just didn't know what it was. And then you had people like Magic Johnson got it, and then you thought anybody could get it. I was a teenager, and it was a very scary time. This is the Trade Center impact in 2001. Jean Benet, Gustavo Bonvardi, Richard Nash Gould, Paul Miota, Julian Lavadier, and Paul Morantz. Tribute to Light in New York City. 2002. High Power Lamps were the World Trade Center Memorial at Ground Zero. So to commemorate this horrific experience, they added light there where there were, because it was such a big part of the skyline of New York that people just felt like an emptiness. So they filled it with light as a memorial until they built the new one now. So Tribute and Light projected two powerful beams of light into the night sky where the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center used to stand. It has been recreated each year on the anniversary of the attacks, and the beams reference hope and aspiration because of their immateriality. They refer to the transitory nature and vulnerability of earthly things. Is that a question? Maybe. The World Trade Center is being rebuilt. The design includes a ring of lower office buildings and a large Freedom Tower, a tapering, twisting skyscraper topped by a superstructure and a spire. The Freedom Tower, a 1776 feet tall, commemorates the year of the Declaration of Independence, symbolizes the spirit of the United States. It's done. This is expected completion. I haven't seen it though. I haven't been in New York since then. The area in the middle of the ring of the buildings contains a tree-covered plaza and permanent memorial. There is a museum dedicated to those who died. Michael Arad and Peter Walker's design was chosen for the permanent memorial reflecting absence. It consists of 2 sunken reflecting pools that mark the footprints of the old towers and includes inscriptions of the victims' names. Wow, that's so good. Monuments are really powerful, especially ones where people have died. So honoring that in an artistic, creative way is very difficult as an artist. Look at that. All right, that's it. And I'll see you in the next chapter.